My name is Olivia Hayes, and life has a funny way of circling back. This morning, I was sitting in my office on the 12th floor of the Hayes building. Yes, the name on the glass doors downstairs is mine, sipping my usual vanilla latte. The city was just waking up, the sun stretching itself across mirrored skyscrapers, when my phone buzzed with a new email from the leasing department. Your new tenant has confirmed a meeting today at 11 a.m. to finalize the lease. At first, it seemed routine. I own several floors in this building, so tenants come and go. But when I saw the name on the contract, my breath caught. Daniel Scott. For a moment, the coffee turned bitter in my mouth. Daniel, my old boss, the man who once sat across a desk, looked me straight in the eyes and told me I wasn't enough for his company anymore. The same man who replaced me without hesitation, as if years of late nights, broken weekends, and loyalty were just disposable. Now here he was, unknowingly walking back into my life. Only this time, it wouldn't be his name on the paycheck. It would be mine on the lease. I leaned back in my leather chair, silk blouse soft against my skin, my fingers tracing the edge of the gold pen on my desk. A slow smile curved on my lips. Life didn't just hand me revenge, it handed me the keys. At 11 o'clock, Daniel Scott would walk through my door. And I was ready. I wasn't always the woman with her name etched in gold on the lobby doors. A few years back, I was just another young professional, sitting at a too-small desk under the fluorescent lights of Scott and Associates. I poured my heart into that job. Early mornings, late nights, weekends stolen from me. I gave Daniel Scott everything I had, believing loyalty meant security. But loyalty, I learned, is a one-way street when you're at the bottom. I still remember the day it all unraveled. Daniel called me into his office. His voice was smooth, polite even, but his words landed like daggers. Olivia, the company's moving in a new direction. We've decided to replace your role. Someone fresh, with newer skills. My hands trembled as I tried to hold the folder in my lap. My chest tightened, but I forced a smile, swallowing the lump in my throat. He didn't even look guilty, just business, like I was a file he could discard. That afternoon, I packed my things into a cardboard box. A photo frame with my best friend and me, a half-used notebook filled with ideas that would never be heard, and a small silver keychain shaped like a house. That keychain was from my grandmother. She'd given it to me at graduation, pressing it into my palm with a knowing smile. "Doors will close on you, Liv," she had said. "But remember, you can always build your own. Don't just work behind someone else's door. Own yours." Her words echoed in my mind as I walked out of that office for the last time. I held back tears until I reached the parking lot, where the weight of humiliation finally crashed down on me. For weeks after, I felt lost, stripped of direction. Friends told me to apply for another job right away, but deep down, I knew I couldn't go back to begging for a seat at someone else's table. That silver keychain sat on my nightstand, catching the light every morning, daring me to be brave. And one night, staring at it, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Daniel Scott's rejection define me. If doors weren't opening for me, I would build doors of my own. And someday, people like him would have no choice but to walk through them. Starting over felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, terrifying, yet full of possibility. At first, I didn't even know where to begin. I had a small severance package and whatever savings I'd managed to keep. Most of my friends thought I'd immediately start applying to new firms. But I couldn't bring myself to send out a single resume. Every time I tried, I heard my grandmother's voice in my head. "Don't just work behind someone else's door. Own yours." One evening, over coffee with a college friend, the conversation drifted toward real estate. She casually mentioned how her aunt had bought a duplex years ago and still lived rent-free because the tenant's payments covered her mortgage. Something about that clicked inside me. What if I could do the same, but on a larger scale? I started reading everything I could about real estate investing. Books, podcasts, late-night YouTube tutorials. I stayed up until 3 a.m. more nights than I care to admit, scribbling notes, trying to understand contracts, financing, zoning laws. But knowledge alone wasn't enough. I needed guidance. That's when I met Marilyn Cooper, a seasoned real estate broker with decades in the field. I found her through a local networking group, and when I nervously introduced myself, she studied me with sharp, assessing eyes. "You've got the fire," she said. "Most people don't. But fire alone burns out if you don't learn how to control it." Marilyn became my mentor. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She dragged me to property showings in neighborhoods I'd never dared to drive through. She taught me how to negotiate, how to spot potential where others only saw crumbling walls. The first deal I ever made nearly broke me. A rundown two-bedroom house with peeling paint and a leaky roof. Everyone told me I was crazy. But with Marilyn's push, I scraped together my savings for the down payment and borrowed the rest. I spent weeks painting, fixing, and learning skills I never thought I'd use. My hands blistered, my back ached, but when I rented it out for the first time and the rent check landed in my hands, I cried. Not from exhaustion, but from the realization that I had created something on my own. That one house turned into two. Two turned into four. Some deals were messy, some tenants were nightmares, and more than once, I thought I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. But every time doubt whispered in my ear, I'd glance at that silver house-shaped keychain dangling from my purse, and it reminded me why I started. Years passed quietly. To the outside world, I kept things modest. I didn't post about my properties online, didn't flaunt my growing success. My family and old coworkers probably thought I was barely getting by, scraping together odd jobs. But behind the curtain, I was building an empire. One brick, one deal, one sleepless night at a time. And then, the day came when I signed the papers for a gleaming office building downtown. Mine. The Hayes Building. I remember running my fingers across the embossed letters on the contract, my throat tightening with disbelief. That girl who once walked out of Daniel Scott's office with a cardboard box had just become a landlord to dozens of businesses. I had finally built my own doors. And I knew one day, someone from my past would walk through them. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and I glanced at the clock. 11 o'clock on the day. I knew Daniel Scott well enough to expect punctuality. He prided himself on it, a man who valued efficiency above empathy. I stood from behind my desk, smoothing down the sleeve of my silk blouse, steadying the rhythm of my breath. Then I heard it, the confident echo of his shoes against the marble floor. For a moment, the years fell away, and I was back at his office, clutching a cardboard box, holding back tears. But this time, I wasn't walking out. This time I was waiting. The door opened and there he was. Daniel Scott. A little older now, a little less sharp around the edges, but still carrying himself with the arrogance of a man who believed the world bent for him. "Olivia?" His voice carried mild surprise as his eyes landed on me. "You work here?" I smiled politely, not answering right away. Let him wonder. He set his briefcase on the chair across from my desk, looking around. The leather furniture, the art on the walls, the soft glow of the city streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Every detail of this office was a piece of me. "Nice place," he said casually, still oblivious. "Your boss must be doing pretty well." That was the moment. I let the silence stretch, savoring it. Then I leaned forward slightly, folding my hands together on the desk. "I don't have a boss, Daniel. Not anymore." He frowned, confusion knitting his brows. "I don't understand. I'm here to meet the property owner." I cut him off gently, almost sweetly. "You're looking at her." His mouth opened, then closed again. For a heartbeat, he just stared. The realization washed over him slowly, like ink bleeding across paper. His eyes flickered to the gold plaque on my desk. Olivia Hayes, owner. The silence was thick enough to choke on. "You," he finally managed. His voice cracked with disbelief. "You own this building?" I allowed myself a small laugh, calm and measured. "Among others. But yes, this one in particular is mine." The air shifted. His arrogance faltered, replaced by something I never thought I'd see in him. Uncertainty. I stood, walking to the window, letting the city hum beneath us, as I spoke. "You once told me I wasn't enough. That someone else could do my job better. And maybe back then you were right. But what you didn't see, Daniel, was that your rejection lit a fire in me. a fire that built this. I gestured to the office, the skyline, the empire I had carved out of ashes. He cleared his throat, trying to regain composure. Well, congratulations. I suppose life turned out well for you. Oh, it did, I said softly, turning back to meet his eyes. Better than I ever imagined. The papers for the lease were on my desk, neatly stacked, waiting for his signature. I slid them toward him with deliberate grace. So, let's make this official. You'll be running your company here, Daniel. But every month, when you sign that rent check, you'll be signing it to me. His hand hesitated over the pen. Pride battled with reality across his face, but reality always wins. He picked up the pen slowly, his once steady grip trembling just slightly. As the ink met paper, I felt the weight of years lift off me. This wasn't revenge, not really. It was justice. It was balance. And for the first time since the day he discarded me, I felt whole. Daniel slid the lease papers back across the desk, the ink from his signature still glistening. He leaned back in the chair, trying to mask his discomfort, but I could see it. The slight twitch of his jaw, the stiffness in his shoulders. For years, he had held the power between us. Today, the roles had shifted, and he knew it. So, I said, settling into my chair again, welcome to the Hayes building. But before we move forward, I want to be clear about a few conditions. His brow furrowed. Conditions? Yes. My tone was calm, measured, but firm. I don't just rent space. I set standards. Anyone who operates under this roof represents not just themselves, but the integrity of my building. He gave a short, incredulous laugh. Olivia, it's office space, not a church. I tilted my head slightly, unfazed. Maybe. But this office is mine, Daniel. And here, respect matters. His smirk faltered. I leaned forward. When I worked for you, I was treated like I was invisible, disposable. You dismissed people's worth with the flick of a pen. That doesn't happen here. Not with my tenants, not with their employees. He shifted uncomfortably, but I continued. You'll treat your staff with dignity. You'll pay them fairly, and you'll give them the recognition they deserve. If I hear otherwise, you won't just lose this office. You'll lose the credibility that comes with being here. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it again. For once, he had no quick rebuttal. I softened slightly, letting the edge of compassion seep through. I don't say this to humiliate you, Daniel. I say it because I know what it feels like to be dismissed, to be told you're not enough. No one working under you should ever feel that way. For a long moment, he just stared at me. The man who once reduced me to a trembling girl in his office now sat speechless, forced to absorb every word. And one more thing, I added, picking up the silver house-shaped keychain from my desk and turning it in my hand. The light caught on the tiny grooves, the memory of my grandmother's voice echoing softly in my chest. This building isn't just walls and glass to me. It's a symbol of second chances. I expect everyone inside it to respect that, including you. Daniel exhaled slowly, the fight draining out of him. You've changed, he murmured. No, I corrected gently. I've grown. There's a difference. Silence filled the room, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was the silence of acknowledgement, of balance shifting permanently. Finally, he nodded, a trace of humility softening his expression. I understand. I smiled faintly, sliding the keys to his new office across the desk. Good. Then welcome, tenant. Let's see what you can build, now that you're standing on my foundation. For the first time in years, Daniel Scott wasn't the man with the upper hand. He was simply a tenant, bound not just by ink on paper, but by the terms of respect I had carved into the very walls around us. And for me, it wasn't just about power. It was about closure. Weeks passed, and Daniel settled into his new office. Word traveled, as it always does in business circles, but instead of arrogance, people whispered about something different. A change. He wasn't the same man who had once tossed me aside so casually. I would occasionally pass his employees in the lobby or on the elevators. They spoke with a quiet gratitude, as if something in their workplace had shifted. Lighter.
Kinder.
Maybe Daniel was learning. Or maybe the walls of this building carried the weight of my expectations, and he couldn't escape it. For me, it wasn't about watching him squirm. It was about reclaiming the part of myself I'd thought I lost the day I walked out of his office. The trembling girl with the cardboard box was gone. In her place stood a woman who built her own table, her own doors, her own world. One late evening, I stayed back after everyone had gone, walking the quiet halls of the Hayes building. The hum of the city outside was distant, muffled through glass, almost like a heartbeat. My heels clicked softly against the polished floors as I paused in front of the plaque with my name on it. I slipped my hand into my purse and pulled out the silver house-shaped keychain. The metal was worn now, edges dulled by years of being carried. I held it in my palm, remembering my grandmother's words, "Don't just work behind someone else's door. Own yours." She had been right. Doors had closed on me, cruelly, without warning. But every closed door became fuel, every rejection a brick, every humiliation a foundation. And now, the man who once decided my worth with a sentence handed me a check every month with my name on it. I smiled, tucking the keychain back into my purse. This journey wasn't just about Daniel. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about growth, about proving, to myself more than anyone else, that I was more than enough. Standing there in the quiet glow of my own building, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't seeking validation. I had found something far greater.
Strength.
Independence.
Grace.
I turned off the lights, letting the city's skyline shine through the windows one last time before heading out. And as I walked away, my final thought played softly, like the closing line of a story meant for someone else's ears. He once replaced me, but now, every month, he signs a check with my name on it.